Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Shared Housing Alliance. My name is Kirsten. I have co host Julie on. Julie, how are you?
I'm good. I'm excited this week to talk about this topic.
Awesome. Me too. So, this is a game changer for police. And since you are 27 years in law enforcement, we're going to run some scenarios in which a police officer or someone in the judicial system might want to use shelter-registry.com. Let's talk about scenario number one, which you have just brought up, which is it sounds like relative to drug court, right? There's somebody who needs to find a long-term transitional housing. So, can you tell our listeners they already went through the drug court program, is that right?
Yeah, so there's different stages within drug court, and one of the last stages is to actually become more independent and to actually transition to their own place to live. So they may go through where they get the mental health, they get the job, they get their kind of everything in order, and don't forget they slide back down a little bit, so it does sometimes take over 2 years, up to 2 years, to do this. So at the very end, it's kind of like they really want to be on their own. And I think, in this case it would be, they know graduation's coming up in the next 2 months, they still don't have their place of their own, and they're trying to get that location that will fit, where they want to live, or how they want to live, right? Because you can't always afford exactly what you want. So this would help a lot, because the judge would be able to give that person, as we talked about before, like of ownership, or a little bit of the responsibility of, and independence to find their own place to kind of start over. So yeah, this would really help in the sense that either the judge could recommend that they go here, or the social worker could, check to see is available and inquire that person, but that person can also see what the social worker is looking at to that they might want to go to.
So, just to recap, to make sure that our listeners and I understand this is an individual who's gone through the drug court program. So, at some point, they got arrested relative to drugs, or is it alcohol too? AA?
It could, yeah, actually, it would run the gamut from mental health to alcohol abuse to even the heavy drug use. And they would have had to go through the entire program, to go through the rehab, the inpatient programs, the outpatient programs, having a sponsor, and doing all of the things in each of the phases, up until the point where they are successfully um, working, and they're successfully not testing positive for any type of drugs or alcohol, and we go from there.
And this is such a crucial time in that individual's life because I know from my personal experience with my family that if the individual doesn't find comfortable and clean housing. So at this point in this scenario, the person has a job, they're sober, they've gone through the program, they're feeling like I can really do this. I've got some income coming in, and now I'm trying to find a long term transitional house where I don't have you said they probably don't have any savings, right? But they do have to normally pay their own rent. So we're dealing with somebody who they don't have a lot of deposit. So they can't qualify for a normal lease because they don't have the down payment for that place. But they do have some income coming in. And in my experience, they're working normally an entry level job, right? So maybe it's not a lot of income. Is that correct?
Correct. I mean, don't forget, during this time they've had to pay a lot of fees, fines, costs, stuff like that too. So anything that they would have tried to save wouldn't have been a lot. So they're, They're also limited on some of the hours that they can work because they do have other responsibilities from the program in, outpatient, you know, programs that they still have to go to. So yeah, the time that they're in the program, they're not earning a lot of money and they're not saving a lot of money. And
So
probably as they transition out, they're not making a lot of money.
So their options are to go on Craigslist and try and find a room to rent and hope that that place is going to have roommates that are okay with, whatever it is that that person is trying to, really uplift themselves and stay on the right track. Or they can maybe go to Facebook Marketplace, and it's pretty much the same thing. But again, you're not sure who you're signing up to live with. And then they can go to shelter-registry.com, or this is an awareness campaign that we're doing. So we're going to hashtag this awareness campaign and hashtag end homelessness moving forward, because if this individual, who by all accounts has done all these things to get on track, if they don't find a place due to affordability or credit or savings, if they burned all their bridges, like with their family and friends, they're going to end up in some seedy motels. Normally, that's at least what I see. And then they could be subject to being around people who sell drugs, and some at-risk behavior.
Oh,
Is
they
that
will.
kind of what you see too? If they don't find a
Oh
good
yeah,
place?
they definitely will. They're going right back into the same cycle of trying to get out of. I mean, if you think about it, some people that are just on the verge of homelessness too, that are just their first and foremost thing is to get housing, especially where it might be cold. So they go to the motels that aren't as expensive, or the ones that they can afford, and they just put themselves around that type of environment that's there. And yeah, so that's the whole, obviously, the hard part about this is those hotels, they're very transient, and that behavior that happens there is never any good.
And so the other option would be this awareness campaign to end homelessness, where there are these crucial times. So, right now, for this scenario, this gentleman has done everything right by all accounts, and he needs to find a place, or maybe a social worker or a police officer, just because they happen to know it, or the judge happens to know about shelter-registry.com. They can come here, and if you look at the screen, we can put in male. What's the age, if you recall, for this scenario?
I think he's in his 40s.
So we'll put 40s. And then if we had to put a payment in here, we're going to put that this is a private payer. So let's put debit or credit card, essentially. And length of stay. This was really important because he's actually looking for a long-term transitional house, right? So what that means is that in a transitional house, credit is not something really that's taken into consideration, or a down payment, a deposit is not something in a lot of cases that's looked for. Maybe a little tiny bit of money. So long term, let's say, what does he need? Maybe 1 year.
Yeah, 1 year.
So we do 1 year. And so we have one house that came up. It's the yellow house. And it has only one vacancy, which was last updated a couple weeks ago. And if we click on that, we can see a photo, and we can basically see that this says this shared house is for mature, sober individuals, or those without an issue. So those are called normies, or people that, just, I guess that's the term. And and he can put in his name and his email if he has an email. If he doesn't have an email, that's perfectly fine. That's almost unheard of. But that's not even required. And then a phone number, the move-in date, and then take a picture of himself and submit this. And this will hit the operator's desk. And then they can literally pick up the phone and call him and say, hey, go to our website and do our own application, so we have a little bit more information about your background. And then you can move in 48 hours. So Julie, does that sound like amazing for a police or a judge?
Well, it not only does it sound amazing, but think about the guy that's trying to find his own place, and how much he feels like he's found it too. You know, like he's found something he likes, and he's going to be more excited to stay there instead of being told where to stay. And one of the things I wanted to mention about the fact that he could go on there and do all those things himself, that when he does get contacted, he can be verified by his social worker or the program, which will, maybe even make it better for the shelter that's registered on here, to feel like that person is verified, that person is who he says he is, and that he is in the stage that they are telling on his application. They're saying that he's, outside of the drug court, and that he's successfully completed it, so that they have a better understanding of where this person is in life, and knows that other people that are coming in, they can kind of match those personalities. You talked about before, just going randomly on a website trying to find a roommate and hoping that it works out. And I think this registry will really help when it comes to the social worker and the police, to know that they're putting what kind of house it is, or what type of shelter arrangements that they have. And I know we hadn't really talked about the beginning stages of drug court, where you need a little bit more of hospitalization, and that's where the difference on this website, you can go from one side to the other.
Yeah, let's talk a minute about that. So I was just scrolling over this listing, and you can actually read the house rules. So let me see if those will open up and I can share that tab. But you can, for this particular long-term transitional house, they have attached their house rules, and there's no logos or anything. This house, you can't see the location. And so I just thought that was important to mention before we get into the hospital stuff and some other ways. If this gentleman needed a detox facility, for example, out of getting arrested or something, or something, a higher level of care. But you were touching on a few things really quickly. If you're an operator and this is your halfway house, now you have the ability to bring awareness to the people who you work with by putting your locations on shelter-registry.com. And it's free in 2023, and then it's $15 a month. So only 50 cents a day, to basically let everyone know what your home is specialized for and the features of it. And so looking at the features, what you were saying, Julie, is that a social worker, can actually verify. So that's a yes or a no. And on this halfway house, long-term transitional house, for 1 year, this gentleman can go here. And if he does not have a valid ID, which would prevent him from getting any other type of place normally, or even a hotel, quite frankly, it would be great actually to get a phone call from a social worker at the drug court if you are an operator who says, hey, we want to give you grant funds for 3 months, so this gentleman can get started with you for 3 months. But he does have a job, and he is going to pay for himself. And you can see here, if you're looking really quick, that this house does allow for people with previous felonies. It does not allow for charges pending. And so this operator is saying if they have charges pending, probably not going to take them because we don't know what's going to happen. But if they have previous felonies, we can already know what's on their record. And so they can see, that kind of a thing. And so this person can come into the property, first come, first serve. And, there's information here about the actual house. This one's only $125 per week. And then $75 a month for utilities. And anyway, I just think that is so cool. It's much more specific to social services instead of just like on Craigslist, where you don't really get enough information if you're trying to make an informed decision to stay sober. I know that that's really important from any the people who I've been with. They are trying to make the best housing decision possible because they're at risk. And if they get into a house and they use the only money or resources that they have, and then they find out that that is a bad spot, that kind of sets them up for failure. So, all
Part
right.
of the drug court, real quick before we end here, I know we got to get off here. The benefit of the drug court is that you actually will get a lot of that taken off of your record if you successfully complete the program. So essentially, going on this registry and looking up any of the places that you have an opportunity to go to not only gives this person the feeling of starting over, but allows them to have, other people like-minded around them that maybe have come from a really hard spot, that are really trying hard to get into a new life. And like I said, I think that, kind of sharing this information, not only with the police officers, the social workers, the judges, will really help to keep people in that same path, that they can succeed and stay off the street.
Love that. So one more thing is the hospital feature, since you mentioned maybe higher level of care and detox. And so if we go back to search and apply and put in, maybe in their early stages. So let's just do that scenario within 2 minutes, Julie. If you were a police officer and you encounter somebody out on the street who has a mental, I mean, how do you tell if it's something that's mental or if it's drug related? And do you take them to
a lot of times these are your regular customers, and you kind of know what their habits are, and you know what their vice is. So you're kind of probably going to know that, this is somebody that you've been dealing with that has mental health issues, that you've attempted to get them into a place prior. Maybe they get sent to the hospital, they get released right back out because there is no bed for them. And I mean, it's not so much that you have to kind of try and self-diagnose them right there. This is probably going to be somebody that you've been dealing with, that you're familiar with, that you really do, as part of your job, want to get them help. Not only to reduce the amount of call volume from this person, but to actually get them on track. And that's the kind of thing that this would be really helpful for, knowing that, if I just arrest them, all the court's going to do is just send them right back out, because they're not going to get the help until they actually want it. And where in this case, maybe they're a threat or it's an immediate issue, and the hospital maybe can do something temporarily, but maybe this is a case where we can find them something right away that would be a lot better fit for them.
So that would look like any police officer in the country dealing with someone who they repeatedly deal with, is what I'm hearing you say. And you kind of have an understanding because you've had several run-ins with them. And now you can jump onto shelter-registry.com. And as long as we can get more hospitals, whether you have a psychiatric ward that you manage or a detox facility or detox beds in a hospital, you can actually come on shelter-registry.com and you can put your capacity. So if you have 10 beds, you can put 10 beds, and you can then say that you only have one open. But at least if you're a police officer, you can in real time search shelter-registry.com and you can say, okay, this bed right down the street is open. And so Julie, would you actually put that person in your patrol car and just look online and then drive them over there?
Well, I mean, obviously the registry would allow that. It's going to have to be a case by case basis. I mean, I've actually had alcoholics that I would do that for. Yeah. I would say that they are, if I can't safely leave them there, they're willing to go somewhere, but they don't want to go to the hospital. They want to go somewhere that will take their insurance or take their, their situation, and they can get help. So there are cases where this would be really helpful, that like, and I've had to make phone calls to the local hospital and be like, hey, I want to send this guy to you, and I don't want you to just turn him back away. I want him to try to get placed at this place, that I know of. And, usually it doesn't work out that way because he just gets lost in the system, right? So yeah, in that case, I would just want to put him in my car and take him right to where I want him to go to get the help that he's willing to get at that moment, because that's our best bet to get him back on track.
So if you can look on shelter-registry.com and you can see that they have one bed open, and then you can drop his name in there, and let's say that it's whatever, time of day, but it's during normal hospital hours, which is what, 24/7 anyways. But it hits somebody's desk and they pick up the phone, they could call either him or you, but in any case, they have a bed open. And that's the important thing, is that you're like, okay, they have a bed. If I can just get over there, like, and he's willing to, then they want to take that person's health insurance. They want to take that person in. So is the key here that that they have a bed open versus not knowing that they have a bed open?
Yeah, the key is what are my options right now to solve this problem? And that's what I think the beauty of this website is that there's somewhere I can go that gives me more up-to-date information than what me calling around to 50 places. I can look on here and I can see what my options would be in my particular area, and then I could choose from there how I could proceed. So it's very helpful to be able to look for either side. Like I said, either somebody graduating from the drug court that we're giving them the the freedom to kind of feel like they're choosing where they want to live, or if I'm on the street trying to help somebody and they're willing to go, they want the help, we just don't know where to send them. This would be a game changer to say, here, this is our options right now. Which one do you want to choose? And
So
we're giving
one
them some options. We're giving them some control too.
Yeah, I love that. And another thing I want to touch on, I know that this video is running long, guys, but I just think that it's so important, is to acknowledge that people move all the time until they get their footing, right? And so they're going to be on shelter-registry.com all the time looking for things that, now they're done with their hospital bed, for example. So they've finished, let's say, a detox for 21 days in the hospital, and now they have to go back out and try and find a place. And so either the government is going to try and help them find a place, or they're going to try and find it themselves. And this website provides specific information for these levels of care. And so they can very clearly see, okay, do I need a free place at this point, or can I do a halfway house or a shared house? And the really cool thing is how they pay. And so if you look on the screen, I previously had health insurance in there because Julie, you had mentioned health insurance. Maybe that's the only thing that they have available. But then now they say, okay, I do have Social Security disability, or I have Section 8, right? So if you have a Section 8 house, you should definitely put it on shelter-registry.com, because people can put Section 8 in here. We need people. We need all the Section 8 houses, quite frankly. But you could put some of these other types of payment methods. So just between the level of being either a hospital of some kind, hospital bed, or a free something, or, oh, they're paying a little bit of money, but they don't have a deposit. They certainly are either low income or no income. Um, that is what this site is for. And I just wanted to be really clear that people are going to use it all the time because they have to move around all the time, but it's all up and down in this arena, up until, which is the continuum of care, until they really have a savings. That way they can put down their own deposit, first month's rent on an apartment, And then they also need to have decent credit at that point. They probably need to have a job for about 1 year before a leasing office or a landlord is going to feel comfortable enough putting them basically into like, they now are no longer in the continuum of care. They are now just moving into regular society. It's like re-entry. Isn't that what you call it, or what the judicial system calls it, right, Julie? They're re-entering, but it's even a little bit more different than that, because they no longer are on government assistance. So this is like government assistance website is, but private payers too, low income, no income. But then eventually, after a couple years, right, if they don't get their footing, they're just always going to live in this website, is what I'm saying. But at some point, they might be able to move on to like a normal apartment. Julie, am I saying this? Can you help me talk about
Yeah,
this?
so I know we're running at 25 minutes, so I'm going to end it here. I think that what you're trying to say is that we, like as the problem comes up more and more that there isn't affordable housing, that this website is going to become crucial for some people that never really make enough or are able to, sustain that type of income that it takes to live in an apartment by themselves. So that's where I think you're trying to say, whether it be in the beginning stages of somebody coming out of a big issue, whether it be court or mental health, drugs, whatever, to the point where they are self-sufficient, they want to live on their own, but maybe they just can't afford to, or the area that they live in is just so expensive that they can't. So I think this is going to become something where everybody can use it, whether you're in social services, judicial, police, courts, whatever, or just somebody on their own trying to maintain a place to live outside of living on the streets. So if you find value in our content here, this has really been helpful. Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel, Katie's House, and always check out Shelter Registry for any of your needs, and have a great week.